Okay, welcome everyone to our third in our job seeker prep class. Very excited to have Joanna Donovan joining us. I was going to say for the last time. Hopefully, we'll see her again in the future, but for the last in this series, she's going to be going over interview preparation, tips and tricks, everything that we want to know so we can present ourselves well. And I'm very glad to have her here. So, Joanna, if you want to do a quick introduction, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, and welcome back, all of you who have been at our last two sessions over the last couple of weeks, and any newcomers, welcome as well. I hope the last couple of topics that we've had have you've had some really great takeaways. This series has a sort of a steep learning curve in terms of really knowing where you have to come from and then getting to that endpoint, which is ultimately is getting the job. So it's a building process. And if you've been lucky enough to been in the last couple of sessions, you'll kind of see everything come full circle in this particular episode or, finale of our prep class. And for those of you who are new, my name is Joanna Donovan. I am certified resume writer and digital career strategist. I'm also a technical writer. I have a degree from UCF. I graduated last year with my bachelor's degree, and I have a million years of experience under my belt and have been able to work with a lot of very interesting people in different industries, whether it's real estate, management, marketing, finance, you name it. It's been a very interesting ride. And the culmination of my education and the experience has been a great combination in terms of trying to help folks with their career development, writing their resumes, getting them prepped for job interviews. And so hopefully this last part of the series, you'll find very interesting and helpful. If you need my contact information, you can click on or take a picture of my QR code at the bottom of the screen, and that way you'll have all of the links to my socials and my website. My company is called Propel Resume. I do comprehensive career development for anyone from high school level to a seasoned professional and returning back to work. All of it is within my wheelhouse, and I have a really great time learning about everyone.
Just a quick check. Should we be seeing your screen?
Oh, did I not share? Oh, that would help, wouldn't it? Thank you, thank you, thank you. That's what happens when I made everything. So nobody got to see all that. Let me go back and a couple of slides. I won't go over it again, but let's see. Share. Thank you for letting me know. That would be really, really silly. Okay, everyone can see my screen now? All right. Yes. So this is basically my overview. The QR code I was talking about is there on the bottom left of the screen. And again, topic for tonight is the interview prep. My company is Propel Resume, and tonight we will be working on interviews. And as a lot of the dialogue for just before this meeting happened, there are a lot of different feelings that come out of doing interview prep and doing the interviews themselves. And we're going to go over some of the nuances, but I will tell you, this particular part of the training is intense. Normally, when I work with clients, this is a 2 to 3 hour process live, where we're working through different concepts. We're talking about the individual's experiences, where they want to go, and how they want to articulate themselves in interviews. And so what we're going to do tonight is going to be a very high level overview, but by no stretch is it the be all end all. There is a lot of things under the hood that have to be done when you're signed up for a program like this. So hopefully we'll get in enough data for us to kind of get your beak wet on what goes on behind the scenes. So some interviewing facts. The majority of job seekers are scared to death of interviewing. Back in the day, I'm a little more comfortable. Even though I teach it, I'm a little more comfortable. I think when you get to know yourself and you understand what you bring to the table, you're able to really field different questions, the elevator pitch, why do you want the job, all those types of questions. But by and large, it's an uncomfortable process. There's no doubt about it. People are judging you. People are trying to gauge how you're going to fit in with their teams, trying to figure out what you'll do in a crisis situation, whatever that kind of perspective looks like is being done during an interview. But likewise, you're doing the same. You're reading body language. You're trying to figure out whether or not you're a good fit for them. And so it's sort of a two-way street, even though it might not feel like it. And the vast majority of hiring professionals feel that the job candidates do not properly prepare for an interview. And I have to agree. This is what it looks like when you don't prepare. It's like putting on your pants before your underwear. And understanding yourself is 3/4 of the job. The last quarter is really putting it all together and being able to speak to somebody about yourself in a confident manner. So if you go into this interview prep process without having done the resume build, you're definitely not going to have enough tools to be able to speak about yourself. So consider this, the fear of public speaking, which is just like interviewing, is right up there with the fear of death and being buried alive and the fear of stakes for most people. So it is very terrifying for some. Some people take it in stride. I'm one of those people that have grown into it, but I know that there's a lot of social nuances now that people are not real comfortable of public speaking, being on video, that sort of thing. And so hopefully you'll find some tools to be able to navigate the different landscapes, the different types of interview processes. Here are some common nonverbal mistakes people make during interviews. And I want to prep this slide by saying that when I was in high school, which was like too many million years ago, we had a class that we actually took in high school that took us through just life experiences, which they don't really showcase anymore, which is kind of sad. And their whole purpose was to sort of build you up to be really independent. You were able to balance your checkbook. You were able to figure out how you did a mortgage. Part of the process was also developing your resume, which doesn't look and smell like it does now, and also going through the steps of an interview process. We had live mock interviews, and they would tell you, make sure you had a firm handshake, make sure you dress to impress, make sure that you complete eye contact with your audience. There is a lot of things that came out of that class that stood the test of time. And this slide is kind of indicative of what they were talking about back then, which is you have to make eye contact. If you don't, that person's going to think that you're not interested. And likewise, you can feel that from an interviewer as well. You definitely don't want to come away thinking that they don't really understand you or know what you bring to the table. So articulating yourself will help increase that lock both ways. There is little knowledge of the company. When I am with my clients, I'm telling them, especially when we get to the cover letter portion, and that morphs into when you're looking at preparing for the interview prep, is you have to know where you're going. You have to know whether or not the company you're interviewing with is a good fit. Because why go on why even waste anyone's time if that company doesn't share your core values or you don't feel like you would be valued? Why would you even bother going through the interview? Money could be part of it, but it would be a short-term fix for a larger problem. So it's better that you do the research and you also come away with some additional talking points when you're in an interview. So it's really good that you do have some background on the company. Make sure you smile. They always tell you, especially when you do customer service, and I have done that quite a few times over some jobs, that people can tell when you're smiling. So if you go in with a positive attitude and you feel good and you have that smile, it's infectious and people are more comfortable talking with you, and you might in turn get that back and will make you feel more comfortable. Bad posture. It is a fact that people, when they're not confident about themselves, tend to slouch or tend to do this to the side. And it probably is a little more noticeable when you're in a virtual setting because you are in your home environment or someplace you're more comfortable. And so you might find a tendency to slouch or do things that really aren't showing you as being attentive. So you definitely want to put out that good impression. And what I tell folks, whether you're doing an in-person or you're doing a virtual, dress to impress. Even if it's from the waist up, just be presentable, because at the end of the day, if that job ever turns into being something where you're client facing or you have to go in person, even if it's a hybrid situation, they want to know that you'll represent their brand just as much as if it was your own business. You wouldn't want somebody to come in their basketball shorts to meet with clients that you could potentially be making a lot of money from. So you definitely want to make sure that you have taken care of the exterior of yourself. Articulating your diction, your language, everything should be on a professional level. You don't want to be speaking to someone as if you're hanging out at the coffee shop or having a drink after hours. You want to make sure your vernacular is very even, very, concise for the industry. You don't want to be using terminology that the other person might not know. And of course, the words you choose in this environment is really, really important. You want to make sure that you're careful about how you speak about a particular subject if someone asks you your opinion. And doing interviews typically has this notation or connotation that you're there to fire off a number of answers for difficult or challenging or sometimes ridiculous questions. But honestly, if you're prepared for your interview, you will know how to answer just about any question. You have to know yourself to be able to articulate. So it's not just about the regular questions of what are your weaknesses or what are your strengths. It's really a global branding that you're bringing to the table. You really want to be able to express. So it's about how you communicate your value, how you influence the hiring manager or the talent scout. And it's what that changes that what we've done through the pandemic that had also some impact about how we do things. There's a lot of forgiveness now as to how we had done things before and how we do it. And so that landscape is still changing. And so you'll find that even what we did during pandemic and what we're doing now, maybe in a year from now, is going to be a little different. Just be very adaptable, and that will help you navigate any of the rough terrain. So knowing your ROI. ROI is your return on investment for those of you who are not in finance or have not heard the term. And basically it answers the question, what will we deliver in exchange for compensation or that paycheck? At the end of the day, someone is going to be paying you for your work. They're going to want to know what you're bringing to the table, and that's the name of the game. So when you're in the interview, you really want to be able to do three things. You want to communicate your value, you want to establish yourself as a good fit, and you want to have a likability factor. And the purpose on the value is really to showcase or build a compelling case that you can deliver whatever it is that they need in significant results. So essentially, if someone is going to pay you $50,000 to do a product development job, and that's probably on the low side, that you're going to actually deliver $75,000 worth of work. They want to know that they're getting money back. They're getting value back for the money they're paying you. So you definitely want to make sure that you understand what you're bringing to the table. The good fit really has to be that you have the same values, that you are a good cultural fit for the existing team. And likewise, you want to know that they're a good fit for you, because the last thing you want to be is on a team with a bunch of grouchy people. You don't get anything done, and it becomes a really untenable situation. And of course, the main value here is likability, because if the person across from you doesn't get that good, warm and fuzzy feeling, that likability, the likelihood is they're going to look for somebody that they do like. And so you want to make sure, however you get to that point, that you're showing that you're a likable person. Now, all things being equal, employers will hire and promote people who they know, like, and trust. And the whole idea or goal of the job campaign is to influence the decision makers on an emotional response. It's really, that is really key. So if you think about it, whenever you buy a product, you buy a home, you're looking for a new friend, you're wanting to have that exchange. You want to have that connection. And that connection is the emotional response. If you don't have that connection, and a lot of us have felt it, if you've been in an interview and you've come away feeling like, you know what, I just didn't click. That's the emotional response that you're lacking. Well, how do we develop that? Well, we have to develop our elevator pitch. We basically have to explain to that other person who doesn't know you what your skills, your qualifications, and your traits are. Because if they believe and understand and can really grasp what you have that will help make their life easier, they're certainly going to like you a lot better. So you definitely want to make sure that these 3 areas are ones that you cultivate. Now, when I do this in practice, this is the biggest portion of the time that I spend with clients, because although we do the resume portion, when I ask them to tell me what it is that they do that helps them, let's say they want to be a technical writer, or they want to be a nurse, or they want to be customer service, 100% of the time they can't answer me. They have no idea what to even say. So I let them articulate what they think they have, and then we talk about it. Because at the end of the day, if you don't know these particular pieces of you, there isn't any way that the person across from you is going to know it. So you have to really hone in on it. So elevator pitches are like a professional storytelling. You're basically giving that other person a forecasting of what you've done, where what you have in terms of skill sets, and what you can do with them. How do you build up your experiences, how you've built up your reputation in the market, what you've done in terms of results. And we've talked about the whole achievement portion of your resume. This is built in to the elevator pitch. They want to know if you rode in an elevator, whatever that time frame is, and someone asked you what you do for a living, you'd be able to explain to them in a very short period of time, but in a most impactful way, what you can do. So that maybe if that person was a decision maker and they were looking for someone like you, the potential is that they could offer you an interview, or they could ask you more, or want to set up in a future appointment to talk to you a little bit more about you. And that's where you really need to get into a very concise statement about yourself. Well, again, where do we get the data? And I ask this question to my clients too, and a lot of them like, the internet. No, it's not the internet. It is your resume. If your resume is built correctly and you have spent the time understanding where you came from, recalling for your elevator pitch is going to be easy. It will be like sleeping, breathing, eating. You will know yourself well enough to be able to field the information pretty easily. And on top of that, when you deliver it and you want to show examples, the resume is your backup source. It's basically going to be everything that you need on one or two sheets, explaining or backing you up and giving you that credibility. So we're going to go through a very quick example, and sort of what I do with my clients when they go in through the interview prep portion is to kind of give them someone on a low rung, someone who's newbie, maybe never even had college, right? They could have done anything, and here they are applying for a retail clerk job or a team member. Could be somebody going to Target, Walmart, Macy's, JCPenney's, doesn't matter. Essentially, they're sitting in front of someone, and basically the hiring manager says, why should I hire you? It's a valid question. And 100% of the candidates who come to me, they can't answer it. They don't understand what it takes. Now, I'd like some folks to if you want to participate in this, in the chat, if you were this person as a retail clerk, I'd like you to give me the top item that you believe helps you hands down get that job. What is it that you would deliver for as a retail clerk? Quick learner, information detective, people friendly, like felonies, very funny. It's a lot of that. But essentially what you're trying to do is that you're bringing customer service. You are a people person because you are going to be dealing with folks that are coming in to buy product. You're also well-versed in product. So that way you can explain something. Somebody comes in, you're working at Apple, and somebody's asking you for something. They're essentially going to say, well, where can I find it? Or can you tell me more about it? You're going to be that aficionado. Of course, you'll be trained to do that. But at the end of the day, that's why you would be hired for that position, because you're the welcoming force. You're the person that's going to be giving them that excellent experience. And that will prompt them to come back if you do your job well. So it's those nuances, even at a very simple level, that will make the difference if you're asked why you should be hired. So herein lies what a typical response would be. And I want to break this down really quickly, and then you could, on your own, kind of apply it to yourself and understand where you would fill in the blanks with your own data. So a possible response is at the top level is that you're providing customer service excellence. That is actually answering the pain point of the company. Why else would they hire you? If you're really bad at customer service, would they hire you? Probably not. They want to know that you're going to be the face of the company, that you can bring in the people, you can have them return because they had a great experience. So once you've established with the hiring manager that you're going to help increase sales by providing customer service excellence, well, then you go in and explain how you do it. You want to get into your skills, your traits, your qualifications. And if you have a value add, you would add that. So essentially, you would say, I can do this by using solid salesmanship, communication, merchandising experience. I'm personable, highly motivated. Those are your soft skills. So you would add and qualify your statement with qualifications. If you look at my resume, you would notice I was employee of the month. You would state basically that you had 10 years of experience. If you had college, you could say that I have a bachelor's degree in marketing communications, whatever that looks like. Everybody's statement or response to this question is going to be different. It's going to rely completely on your background and what you are, who you are as a person. So everything here is malleable to answer the same question depending on who you are. Now, this value add that's at the bottom is really important because it's not just about whether or not you can speak another language, but it is a skill set that you have that could potentially help move the needle on someone hiring you because it's a skill set not already found on the team. Maybe it's a skill set that they need to expand on a team, that maybe they only have one person doing it. There's a lot of different reasons and a lot of different responses to this. So you could be a person who has a certification in something. You could use that. It depends on who you are. In this particular example, I stated I'm bilingual. I can communicate with your Latin or Spanish speaking customers. It could be a different language. Whatever that looks like, the value add is almost like the zinger. It's the thing that will kind of lock in the whole overarching pitch that you have about being able to do that job. So once you have that statement done, you really should be able to navigate common interview questions because a lot of it's going to be derived off of whatever you've already prepared on your resume, plus what's in that elevator pitch. So but before we get into that, I kind of want to address a couple of things. And one of this is the like is the word like is so overused right now. Please try and remove it from your language. It's so easy when you're with friends. I do it all the time. I think that having gone through a speech class last year or the year before with my degree was eye-opening. I didn't realize after recording myself how many times I would say it. And I'm trying really hard during this particular presentation and all the other ones not to say the word or the word like too often. It's very important. My niece, she's probably not on this call. I hope she's not on this call. But my niece is of the generation that at least every other word is the word like. It is, after a while, it is too much. It's overwhelming to the ear. If you are in any kind of speech, presentation, whatever, and at the end of every sentence, the person says, you find yourself counting it. I don't know if anybody's ever watched a TED Talk speech. Those folks don't have any of that in their language, and they're very engaging, and they practice a lot, and I'm sure there's some sort of nuances to get to that level. But essentially, if you have complete confidence in what you're saying, you should be able to minimize this. You should be able to either eradicate it or minimize it. I'm pretty sure if you listen to the news, you don't ever hear them say it. And I'm sure they're reading from a prompter, but it really does make a difference when you're speaking to someone. So erase the repetitive usage of these words if they're in your normal vernacular, and try to be a little more sophisticated or professional when you are speaking or answering questions. So here are some of the more popular interview questions, 1 or 2 brief statements. Tell me why I should hire you, which was the elevator pitch we went over. Why do you feel that you're the best candidate for the job? Those you can pick out from the ROI, which is your return on investment. What would you bring to the table in order to be able to get that job? All of these should be easy recalls as long as you have done the work to prepare the resume and understand how to deliver that information in a much shorter space. There's questions about how you see yourself contributing to your organization. That really depends on the job and the experiences that you have. No two people are going to have the same response. And in my opinion, it really is not a one size fits all kind of answer. It is not a judgment on whether or not you're going to answer it correctly. Be yourself. Honestly answer the question and how you feel. It's never wrong if you're being honest and if you're being yourself. If that other person doesn't see it that way, you're not a good fit for that organization and you should move on. But at the end of the day, you should know where do you see yourself in 5 years? I got this question early on in my career, and at the time, and I don't know if it's necessarily acceptable to say it now, the owner of the company said, "Where do you see yourself in 5 years?" And I was very cavalier about my answer. I said, "I'm going to be sitting in your chair." And of course, he chuckled. He thought it was funny. I don't know if people would find that funny anymore, but it lent itself to show that I was willing to put in the work to make it to his level. So again, you could do it in the way that you would speak, but you could find some very clever ways to answer it. You could say, "I'm hoping that I will have grown with this company into another position of a higher level, be able to train people under me." There's a lot of different ways. The basis of answering any of these questions is to keep yourself out of the weeds. You don't want to make a statement that you will have to further define. You want to keep it very simple. You don't really want to get into a speech about yourself that might cause them to be concerned about a statement or anything else that might go against their corporate values. So keep it very straightforward, keep it honest. The biggest weakness and the biggest asset questions are some of the more popular questions that come about when you're talking. And this is a clever way of answering the biggest weakness question, is you can say, "Pertaining to this particular role, I don't have any weaknesses. But if I did, I'm sure that I would make sure of taking care of either learning more about the role, learning more about whatever is necessary for a particular project, or to perhaps work with the team better." That way, it's a very general statement. It doesn't pin you to, "Well, I'm really shy," or "I don't really like people." Those kinds of things are really going to get you a mark in the wrong direction. So keep it very general and keep it open-ended, that you're open to opportunities, because the more that you're adaptable, the more flexible you are, the more they can see you on their team. What's your biggest asset? You can be honest. I mean, if you're in project management, you can say, "Managing people, that is my biggest asset." Maybe you're really good with innovation. You are a quick learner. Definitely talk about a couple of programs that you learned quickly and how you adapted them to what you did. Those are very overarching items that you could use. It shows that you're capable of learning. You're capable of implementation. So it's easy not to worry about further questioning or any kind of conversations in the other person's head about things that maybe they don't like or maybe might not make you a good fit. There are things about what can I expect in the first 30 days of accepting the role. And these are questions that you could ask a hiring manager. You want to come in with questions that will prompt them to speak to you about the company, to speak about the role, speak about the team. If they know you're interested and you ask the right questions, they'll see you in a different light. They'll be able to have a more fluid conversation with you, maybe a little more relaxed. Sometimes asking the question of, "What do you like about the company?" is an eye opener. Why have you been here so long? What is it about the company that you love? They will articulate back to you. And if you're in a situation where you're in multiple interviews, where you're coming back 2 and 3 times, and it still does happen, you'll be able to use that as sort of ammunition when you get to the next level. You can say, "Well, I heard from Susan that you're doing X, Y, and Z. And I'm really excited to learn more about it. And it's almost like a springboard. You can use these as talking points going forward. You can ask which parts of the position has the steepest learning curve, because you can also find out if there's training involved. It opens the door for them to give you more information. When you send, if you're one of those folks, and I always encourage it, you send a thank you note. You can use some of this data in your thank you note that basically says, I was really interested in X, Y, and Z. I'd like to learn more. I'm looking forward to that next interview or the next part in the process. All of it is helpful. All of it is data mining, and you want to make sure you get that information as most efficiently as you can. You can ask what's a typical day for the role, skills and experience needed. And if they bring these items up, you can say, that's great. I did this, I did that, or I can do this, bringing in your skill sets and your traits. Professional development opportunities. It is really a great tool, or excuse me, not a tool, but a great asset for a company to reinvest in their people. My education over the last 4.5 years, whatever it took for me to get my bachelor's, was 100% paid for by my company. I could not afford to go to college prior to the last 5 years. Life happened. I didn't have money. I had children. I had, life got in the way. Essentially, I went to them, used their program, and it was the best decision I ever made, because now I'm able to talk to all of you, which is fantastic. You could do the same. Look for those opportunities. It could be something that they actually bring people in on a quarterly basis. One of my clients, she's in construction, and she does, I believe she's working scheduling on like residential projects. And they brought in someone to help them learn how to speak effectively to the vendors. And on the heels of that, we did our interview prep, our first session. And she said, this is so fresh in my head because they just did internal training. She goes, I really enjoyed that. That's the kind of thing you want to ask about. It's really simple. Most companies do it. You can ask about the culture, the dynamic of the team. Sometimes that will lead to that they have plans to do international expansion, that they have lots of different cultures. People might be along this, maybe if you're a foreigner and you speak a different language, there's somebody there that you could meet and make new friends and network. And it's a lot of figuring out how you fit into their puzzle. And these questions are really great. And again, what do you like best about working at the company? That's a great question. And most of them are more than willing to explain it to you. We talked about this a little while ago, top 10 interview tips. You want to smile, make sure you eye contact, firm handshake. I can't be, even you ladies, firm handshake. It shows confidence. It shows you have a can-do attitude. Even if you're not articulating it in words, you're doing it by body language. And body language is a big portion of this. You want to make sure you dress to impress, maintain a confident body posture, be on time, go be there a few minutes early, log on a few minutes early, whatever it takes. They're going to know that if you're capable of doing that, you'll carry that on if you get the role. Research the company and know your elevator pitch, be attentive, and make sure you thank the interviewer for their time. They don't have to meet with you. They don't have to secure an interview with you. Thank them for their time. It's just a polite thing to do, and follow up with a thank you note. I'm old school. I'm of that opinion. I believe I just put out a post this week on LinkedIn about a company that does thank you letters for you. I think if you're connected with me or you want to look me up, I thought it was brilliant. I was reading a book on Gen X this week, and the author was basically saying his son, who's a Gen Z, found this company because he did not want to write a thank you note. So he found a company to do it for him. However you got to do it. They actually even copy your handwriting so it looks like you. For $3.25, it's probably a pretty good bargain. But whatever you got to do, make sure that you extend yourself, because at the end of the day, you want the networking opportunity. They may not have that role for you, but if you said thank you, or if you sent them a note thanking them for their time, another role might come up and they'll think of you. They'll remember that you were gracious to them. That's the name of the game. You want that in return too. It's all about the respect. And of course, follow up. There were some questions in the last session about follow up, and it really depends on how much information you garner from the interviewer. If you finish the interview and basically are asked if you have any other questions, one of your questions can be, what's your timeline look like for hiring someone? How many rounds of interviews? Do you have a deadline for this? May I follow up with you, and when would be an appropriate time? There isn't any reason why you cannot ask. If they set the stage for you in about a week, check back with me, or in about 2 weeks, we will reach out to you one way or the other. You have some baselines, some milestones that you can put into your calendar, and you can follow up accordingly. In the last session, I had some samples about networking letters, connection letters, whatever that looked like, depending on the situation you're in. Those will be really helpful in the situation. And if not, I'm sure if you went on the internet, you would be able to find some version you could put together that would sound more like yourself. But follow up, because if you don't follow up, someone else will, and they will get your job. So you definitely don't want that to happen. Now, practice, practice, practice. It is a really big deal to practice. Whether you practice in the mirror, you practice with a friend. In the training that I have done this year, this company had come out to our resume writing and coaching seminar, and they demonstrated this program. And I recommend this to every single client. I don't have any participation in this company, but I loved the programming and the platform. It's free to use. So there's no, for the first 6 sessions of you practicing, it's free. If you decided you wanted to have a subscription, it's $8 a month for unlimited use, I believe. The link should be in the chat. I highly recommend using it. What does this do? This program will actually give you feedback. You can record yourself. You can input the questions. You do the responses on a recorded session, and it will tell you in real time whether you didn't look at the camera, whether you seemed nervous, maybe you were slouching, maybe your answer wasn't strong enough. My clients have come back to me and told me that they found it to be extremely helpful. It kind of takes the edge off of thinking you're in front of someone and giving you that extra practice. This feedback doesn't have any judgment. So why not try it? And again, I think it's the first 6 sessions or what have you. Essentially, you want to have as much practice as possible. Do it in front of a mirror. Have your pitch. Now, when I do this with my clients and we do it live, I have them put Post-it notes on their screen underneath the camera, not on top of the lens, and basically have their pitch lined up. Their pitch will have a list of all of their traits, skills, and qualifications, so that depending on how the conversation goes, they're able to recall or pick from the list what those items are and massage the conversation or direct it. Because at the end of the day, what you want to do is you want to steer that conversation. You want to be in control. So if you can get the nerves out by practicing on a site like this, have yourself prepared, you should be able to really steer the narrative and get the conversation going in a very positive manner, or find out quickly that you don't belong there, whichever way it works. But please try this. It really is helpful. A lot of these AI products that are out there today are great. Last week we had done, I shared with everyone about having Dreamwave, which was doing the professional photos. And I don't know if Rolanda's on with us today, but Rolanda did it. She took my advice. She spent the $30 or $40 and came away with some phenomenal pictures that she was really pleased with. And she thought, well, it was super affordable. Here's another affordable option. Take advantage. There's a lot of great pieces out there. People are really doing some amazing things out there. There's also a platform called AppSumo. It's AppSumo. SUMO. Forgive me on the spelling. AppSumo. And those are a lot of folks who are putting time into creating new software, all different kinds of software, and you can navigate it. And I believe for $65, you can have a subscription and you can download, I forget how it all works, but you have a 30-day money back guarantee. So you could try something, pay the fee, it's yours. There's no renewals or anything like that. You buy it, that subscription is yours for life, and you can try stuff out. So there might be things on there that will help you with your skill sets, help you with other things. It's just a really great resource. It was one of those other items that came up during our seminar. But this Udly is a really great program, and I hope everyone takes advantage of it. And that is the end of session 3. So hopefully We'll have some great questions during this session. I wanted to keep it short. I'm sure it's a big subject for everyone. So I'm going to stop sharing, and hopefully we have some great comments that we can field.
Yeah, thank you so much, Joanna. Day says, please tell me this will be recorded. Don't worry, everything is recorded. Recording is still going, so you'll be able to refer back to everything. I guess, Julie, did you happen to catch any questions in the chat?
I didn't see questions, but I saw a lot of good comments that were either adding to or saying, thank you for that great advice. There were a few people who were saying, here's what I do to answer such and such question that was on a slide. And there's one question that I have as just a way to get questions started. What should you do if you had a list of questions written down and in the interview process, the interviewer answers all of them?
It's a good one. That's a great one. I think that you should always have maybe some sort of bonus one in your hat. And to me, the greatest takeaway is volunteer work. I believe that people inherently today want to be involved, whether they're virtual or not. They want to be involved. They want to give back. They want to make a difference. That seems to be the overarching theme. You can always ask them if they have plans for their next corporate volunteer session. You can ask to speak to another staff member. Say, is there a way that I can speak to someone on the team and get a better understanding of the team dynamic? There's a lot of different things that you can go through. Make it personal to yourself. What would you want to know that isn't a script? What would you want to have up front? You could basically say, how many people have you interviewed for this position? I mean, you could ask the world. There's a lot of different questions, but go with the ones that would mean something to you. Go with the ones that are actually going to help you understand if you belong there, because you don't want to be unhappy, even if you have successful interviews. I hope that was pretty good.
Yeah, that was helpful. It looks like we do have some questions coming in. One from Diana is, should we address the interviewer by their first or last name?
Ask them. Flat out ask them, because at the end of the day, when I'm working with someone, I was working with someone yesterday and I didn't really know how to pronounce their name. So it's the same thing as asking them how to pronounce their name. You can say, I'm sorry, what would you prefer to be called, by your first or your full name? It really is, it's up to them. Leave it in their court. It shows a sign of respect, in my opinion. And if anybody wants to come off mute and have an organic conversation, I'm all for it. So by all means, you don't always have to put in the chat.
I was just going to say that Bethany added that she has some standard fallbacks just in case, like, what are you most excited about that you're working on right now? And I'm not really seeing questions, but we have a lot of good discussion.
Nicole's comment. She says, I'm 41. I'll call them by their first name. I got to tell you something. I'm 55. I'm not afraid to say it. My boss is 81, and I do not call him by his first name. I have never called him by his first name. He told me his name is Bob, and I don't call him Bob because I think it's a sign. For me personally, it's a sign of disrespect. There are other folks in my company that everybody else is on a first name basis, but he was the founder of the company. I just found that it was a matter of respect, in my opinion. Everybody has a different take on it, so I'm not going to steer anybody from doing so, but that's just me. But yeah, I can understand it. I can totally get that you're comfortable on that level, and that's great.
Yeah, no, and I've worked in, plenty of environments where, someone's title or someone's seniority or longevity somewhere warrants, being called Mr. or Judge or whatever. And I totally get that. And I'm not afraid of deference, but I'm sorry, but 30-year-old hiring manager, if you tell me your name is Tom, I'm calling you Tom. You're not going to call me Mrs. Lindquist, throughout the whole interview. That's a little much, I think. But, I think it's sort of like matching energies, appreciating deference where it's due. But generally, out in the world. If your name is Tom, I'm calling you Tom. I'm 41. I don't care anymore. You're going to be Tom.
Okay, I see Diana had a question about having a phone interview next week. Are there any challenges specific to that as opposed to face-to-face interviews? It can be. You won't be able to read body language for sure. But I think if you keep the conversation light and if you can research the person ahead of time, it's definitely helpful to know their background and, just be yourself. I think once you figure out, you can hear it in people's voices, whether they're stiff or not, whether or not they're going to have that very fluid conversation with you. And if you're one of those people who can I call it breaking someone, that you basically can figure out a place to put in a simple joke, or figure out, oh, I saw you had some cats on your Instagram page, or whatever the case may be. Probably not Instagram's not the right one, but like LinkedIn or whatever. There's just some way that you can break. You can use the weather, and you can see if you can get them into a space where even if you were looking at them, you would still feel the same connection. That's where the name of that emotional response is a big deal. I mean, you don't buy a car, you don't buy a house, you don't get a friend unless that's an emotional response. So you want to do that on a phone interview as well.
I have feelings about the follow-up, like the thank you letter, because it just, I don't know, it feels overly saccharine to me. Like I always thank the interviewers during the interview. And then I ask the timeline. And so I just feel like I almost feel like it's rude to follow up before if they tell me 1 week, I'll give them a week and then I'll follow up in a week. But I don't know, it just feels phony to me.
So
Yeah.
are you feeling like just sending anything, no matter the timeline, feels weird?
If I've made the effort to make sure that I thank them in person or during the interview, to me, it feels like sending a follow-up email 2 or 3 days later is just ticking a box of like, I read this list of the things that I should do.
I can tell you what I do, Kate, because I also feel a little weird about it sometimes, saying
Yeah.
thank you for your time again. I look at it as a networking opportunity where I'm like, regardless of what the future holds, I enjoyed our conversation. I'd love to connect and then connect with them on LinkedIn. So I'm like, I'm doing something productive. I did enjoy meeting this person, so it's authentic, and I feel like I've done something useful. But that's just works for me too, because I've also had that sort of
Oh, turn
struggle.
it into a LinkedIn connection. I like that.
Now, I have had my
But I always,
client
so I was
send
gonna
out
say,
thank
I do
you.
ask before I do that. I ask in the interview, is it all right if I connect with you on LinkedIn? Sorry, I just want to clarify.
No, that's a good point. That's a really good point. I have had, I would say, a good selection of my clients send out thank you notes. And what I do is I tell them to point out something that was monumental in the conversation, or I have them do something pretty bold, like a top 3 reasons why you should hire me kind of thing. Well, how did that go? Well, I had one who was up for an engineering position. He was fresh out of college, and he knew he was vying against 12 other applicants. It was the last spot on the team, and he really wanted it because it was literally in his backyard. He didn't want to have to drive, so he really wanted that job. And he sent in a thank you note, basically saying, I appreciated the time. I'm looking forward to the next steps in the process. And I especially enjoyed X, Y, and Z. Well, wouldn't you know it, that letter got him to the next round. That letter also was the catalyst for the conversation in the next round of interviews. He ended up meeting the president of the company that day. And the president picked apart that letter and said, explain to me how you came to this, or why you think that. It was to bolster him into a very organic conversation. So although the mechanics might seem mundane, might seem stale, might seem really quirky and funky, there's a purpose behind it. It's not so much to say, yeah, thanks for meeting me. You have to go, like Bethany said, take it the extra mile. You want to break out of that. And it doesn't matter if you send it in an email, whether you write it, handwrite it and send it in, you put in a post on LinkedIn, again, provided that, you are connected. There are ways. Remember, at the end of the day, you're selling yourself. You're selling yourself into that position. And if you can't sell yourself to the top degree, they're going to go with somebody else. So it depends on how much you want that job and how many people do you think you have to go up against in order to get that position. Whatever you do to got to stand up above the rest, you do it. Got to put your best foot forward. If you're not the letter writer, you're not the letter writer. I'm not here to say that you absolutely have to do it, but if you're in a crunch situation, and there are a lot of people out there who have been out of work for 6, 8, 12 months, any one of these possibilities could make the difference about them getting their next job. That the hiring manager could be looking for somebody who actually has a personality, who actually follows up. Maybe that follow-up is part of a project management where you're doing tasks and you have to follow up to make sure the project's done. There are a lot of reasons why people do things and ask things. It's a demonstration of it all. For example, it just made me think of something kind of a little bit off topic, but when we're talking about different questions that people ask, I think we were talking about this before the session started, about how they ask you really weird questions. One of the weirder ones that I have heard, and I have seen other people have to field, is if you had to walk up to the top of the Empire State Building, how many steps would that take you? Well, inherently, it sounds like a stupid question and has nothing to do with the job. But what they're asking you is to figure out how you think on your feet, how you would, feel the entire situation. What's your thought process? All of it matters. It all matters. However it works for you is what you should follow. It should never be a hard and fast rule. You should definitely go with your gut. And if you're not a letter writer, you're not a letter writer. It shouldn't detract from you. But if you're in a situation where you really want that job, it might make the difference. Is really all my point of it.
I could use that to kind of roll into a second question about, I'm not against letter writing. Like, I actually have a wax seal and stuff that I'll just send to friends every once in a while to throw them off. And then I get people say, I didn't write you back for months because I wanted to handwrite a letter and I didn't get around to it. I was like, it's not a guilt letter. Like, it's just to be unique. So I'm not against writing a letter per se, but I feel like there's a lot of advice out there of look them up on the internet and send a letter. And I feel like there's almost too much confidence in what you can find online, or maybe I'm just an elder millennial and therefore, like, I don't know how to hack your social security number just with a few clicks. But sometimes there's things I can't find online. Like, if it's a super big company, maybe there's different offices and you send it to the wrong one. Like, I don't know. I get tripped up by stuff like that, or I can't just find anything online.
No, that's fair. And again, you're going to do what works for you. And yes, there's a lot of advice, mine included, a lot of advice out there. And this is something I didn't mention, and I always ask for it. I find that when I tell my children to do it, they don't do it. And it's the old adage, when you tell your kids to do something, they don't do it. But ask them for a business card. Everybody's got a business card. Even my electronic QR code, I still have physical business cards, because at the end of the day, you want them to connect with you. So it doesn't hurt. A lot of times you will be met with, oh, I'm out of them. You tried, you did your best. You could, ask on the way out, receptionist or what have you, for a general business card, or that's what I used to do. If that person didn't have a card on my way out, I would stop at the reception desk and say, hey, do you have a general business card? May I have that person's email? I'd like to be able to send them a thank you or a note or follow up later. 9 times out of the 10, the receptionist will help you, especially if you made a connection while you were waiting for your appointment. But I get it. You have to do what works for you. And if you really want the job, the thank you might come in a different format for you. It might be something completely unique to you, and that's okay too. It's all, at the end of the day, however you got to get the job, you got to get it. But that's just my general upbringing that I'm bringing to the table here.
Well, we are at 8:30. Just quick check with Julia. Did we answer all the questions?
One just came in from Vicky. I thought there was a trend away from business cards.
I go to events all the time and everybody's got a business card. So I'm not really sure what circles, there might be some circles that don't do business cards. I'm trying to get into a more digital space because that seems to be a more acceptable practice. But I have business cards. I do my thing. I collect them, and once I put them in, I discard them, but people still have them. People still develop them.
I like the idea that you collect them. I was starting to like envision that you had like a vast business card collection that like expands
I used to
across
have a very
decades.
nice Rolodex. Anybody know what that is?
Yes.
Nice
Very,
big
very
spinning wheel of death
satisfying.
of cards. That's it.
Well, since we are at time, just a quick check with Joanna. I think you were going to ask people who have attended all the sessions.
Yes, actually, I'm going to share my screen one more time. I have the last slide that I want to get to. If you were here at the first meeting, you will know putting in your email in the chat today is a very helpful item. And I'm going to, let me move this, hold on, move my people off the screen so that you're not looking at yourselves. Hang on a second. I want to thank everyone, first of all, for allowing me to come into your homes and speak about these subjects. I'm hoping that I was valuable in some way, shape, or form, that you basically got something out of this, whatever it is. If you find that you are willing to take the deep dive and you really need assistance, you really are finding yourself overwhelmed, I'm happy to help. For those who are only the folks that have attended, who've signed up and attended these 3 sessions or just the 1 session, I'm providing a 10% off my services, any of the services that are on my website. And so that way, if you need something, that will give you some a really good boost to get out into the marketplace and hopefully get you customized so that you can get your next role. But I wanted to put that out there. And anyone who has been with us every single session for all 3 sessions, make sure your email is in the chat, and we will be reaching out with some news shortly. So
Right.
thank you, STC, for having me. I really appreciate it. Hopefully we get to, oh, did I even share my screen? Did I even have it?
I was just about to check if you could share your screen
Let
for
me
the
see, let me
last
go
slide.
back. There's the slide. There's my
Thank you.
contact information. Just wanted to make sure that everybody knew I came in to volunteer here because I really felt there was a need, and hopefully you got something out of it that could help you, even if it was one piece of information. And I'm available if you ever have a quick question. You can certainly shoot me an email, and I'm happy to help. So hopefully we'll see you again in the next sessions, whenever they might be.
And just again, thank you, Joanna, on behalf of the chapter. Thank you for coming. Joanna did this out of the goodness of her heart and did not charge us a speaker's fee for these 3 sessions that she prepared custom just for this series. So grateful for her volunteerism, and just, I guess, a virtual round of applause for Joanna and putting so much information into these 3 sessions.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun, really. I'm glad that there were people that came out, and hopefully I made a difference for at least one person out there. So that was the goal.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. These are recorded and will be uploaded, and we'll send out the details and links in case you missed any of the previous sessions, and also Joanna's contact information in case you didn't capture from the chat here. We'll make sure you have it so you know how to take advantage of her services should you need them. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us,
Thank you.
and hopefully we'll see you soon.